That was Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, speaking in the last 20 or so minutes with that update. Let's talk to Piers Thompson, who lives very, very close to the block and has lived in this area for more than a decade. Piers, it's really good of you to talk to us, because I'm picking up already, only being here a couple of hours, how incredibly difficult it is for everybody here this morning. But to give people who perhaps don't even live in London a sense, you live in a low-rise block of flats, really almost at the foot of this tower.
Yeah, I live in one of the houses just behind us here, and I was woken up at about 1:15 by noises in the garden. I looked out, I thought it was someone breaking in next door, but I looked out the window and of course saw the fire, which at that point was just really in a corner down there, just bottom left by where the school, you can see through past the school. And then in the next 15 or 20 minutes, it shot up that left-hand side, and it went up like a bonfire that was being lit on Guy Fawkes. That has recently been reclad, that building, and it used to be concrete moulded fluting, and so there's a gap on each corner between the right angle cladding and the indented fluting. So I think that acted as a chimney, because that fire it went up way quicker than it should do. I mean, the other thing is that cladding seemed to burn like paper, because once it had gone up the side of the building, it then started spreading laterally really quickly, and you could see people flashing their torches, flashing their phones. Someone had fairy lights, someone else was waving a blanket out the window. You could hear people shouting. It was totally disturbing.
It is hugely distressing to even hear that account, Piers, and it's very, very hard for any of us to stand here today and look at this building, because we know that people lost their life in that building, and we have to remember that at all times. And we have just heard from the Metropolitan Police that they have confirmed that 6 people have died. That is the latest that the London Police are telling us, and it's very, very difficult to look at that, because we know, and as someone who has lived here for more than a decade, well, I hope, first of all, Piers, is everybody you know safe?
Yes, I mean, there's a guy I work with very closely, the guy who actually wrote the blog that is going on the rounds about the fire safety. So the first thing I did was call him, and he'd got out by the skin of his teeth, but he's still in absolute shock. I believe that a lot of kids who go to that school, the Green Building, you can see over there, a lot of kids live in that tower block, and I'm very worried that my daughter's lost a friend in there, which remains unaccounted for. There were a couple of kids that we thought might have perished have actually turned up, so there is hope.
I mean, it's hard to find positives at such a desperate time, but I have been so struck already by the huge number of people I have seen, all the different streets around here, really helping out. I mean, there are people walking around, giving out water, giving away food. We're going to be talking to someone later. I know he says that they've opened up the local sports centre for people to go in.
The West Way have opened up.
Exactly, to get refreshments, to have a shower. And you can just sense that people are chatting to each other all the time and making lists and finding out who needs help. Give us your assessment. Describe what it's been like for you to live here, what sort of community it is.
It's a very tight-knit community, and ever since the local council, RBKC, published plans to regenerate this area, the communities gathered even closer together, because we've been having huge meetings to state our case and to work out how to protest about their plans to demolish the whole area. So what was already a close-knit community has been brought together even closer. There was also quite a euphoria around here at the election of Emma Dent-Coad, the Labour MP who took Kensington on Friday. And there was a fantastic feeling on the streets on Thursday, because we felt we were having our voice heard at last. I mean, one of the things that we have to complain about the council is we believe the council and the TMO have been really managing a decline in the social housing here to add justification to their plans to regenerate, which is another word for demolish, the whole area. So there are people who have been prophesying some catastrophe like this for some time.
Okay, I mean, what we really have to stress is we simply do not know. Nobody knows. The fire brigade doesn't know. No one knows yet what happened here.
No.
What we can say, because you saw it, is that it took hold very, very quickly, the fire. That is one thing that countless witnesses have been reporting.
There's no doubt the whole thing went up way too quickly for a block that has 500 people in it.
The cause of it, yes, 500 people, as you say, Piers. Thank you so much. We hope that everybody you know and your daughter's friends are safe and sound. It's really good of you to talk to us as someone who's lived here a long time. Piers,
there's a Just Giving site. If you go onto Just Giving and look for Grenfell Tower, they're trying to raise, it started with 50 grand, but we're now looking to raise 500 grand because that is 130 households who've lost, if they haven't lost their lives, if they're lucky enough not to have lost their lives, they've lost literally everything. I think the immediate needs are met at the moment in the various centres, the Maxilla, the Lasper Christian Centre, the Westway Sports Centre. I don't think they need anything right now, but they have asked people to keep an eye on social media because there's 500 people going to need someone to stay tonight, and there's lots to do, you know, not just tomorrow and the next day, but over the next 6 or 9 months.
Piers, thank you so much. Thanks so much for coming to talk to us on a very, very difficult morning for everybody here. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Piers Thompson, who's lived very, very close to Grenfell Tower here for more than 10 years. Just to bring you up to date if you are just joining us here on BBC News. So the Metropolitan Police, the London Police Force, confirming in the last few moments that 6 people have been killed here in this devastating fire that began at 5 to 1 this morning, and the Met saying that they believe and fear that death toll will rise. Just trying to give you also a few details that are just coming through from the FPA, the Fire Protection Association, which is the UK's national fire safety organisation. Not surprisingly, referring to this as a devastating fire. They are, of course, looking at all the details as they emerge, and it goes into some quite technical detail about the materials that may or may not have been used here. We'll go through that in detail and we'll bring you the key points of that, because just as our guest was just there, and as lots and lots of people have been telling us here, there is, of course, and you sense it even in the conversations that you hear as you walk around, there is a lot of people talking about the fact that this tower block was refurbished, and that refurbishment finished last year. It was a 2-year-long refurbishment, and there's a lot of talk about it, a lot of speculation, but of course we simply don't know at this stage what has gone on here, other than, as we were reflecting with our guest there, clearly it took hold incredibly quickly. We believe it started perhaps on the 10th floor, but a lot of details still to emerge. But we can say with certainty that it took hold very, very quickly. And Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, reminding us that 100 medics and many, many firefighters are still at the scene. Let's hear a little from David Collins. He is from the local Residents Association. This is what he's been telling journalists here this morning.
We repeatedly reported concerns to the tenant management organisation of the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, including fire safety concerns, which were not investigated during the regeneration works.
What were those concerns?
Concerns over locations of boilers, concerns about escape, concerns about fire escape lighting. And the list goes on. Even floor, and lots of. I've spoke to Nick Paget-Brown of the council. I spoke to councillors, and they refused to investigate. They wouldn't believe that the residents were concerned. 90% of residents signed an independent petition asking for there to be an investigation into the organisation that runs this building because they were so incompetent, and the council turned it down. 68% of residents felt they'd been threatened, harassed, pressured, or bullied by the same organisation or by the contractors doing the work. I personally had the contracts manager of Ryden Contractors, who ran the work, come in and threaten me on my own door. And so that was the conditions we were dealing with, and they didn't listen to our concerns.
David Collins from the residents, one of the residents' associations here in this area, the Latimer Road area of West London. We're going to talk to someone else who lives here in just a moment. First, let's get an update from our correspondent Wira Davis, because Wira is on another side of the tower block, I believe, to where I'm standing. Communication's very, very difficult, as you would appreciate at the moment, so I think Wira's line is perhaps not as good quality as we would wish. But Wira, just explain where you are and what you've been witnessing.
Yeah, I think I'm on the other side of the building to you, and what we've seen in the last hour or so is the fire take hold again right in the middle of the building. Now, that was in an area of the building where the hoses from the ground couldn't reach. But critically, what the fire service have been able to do now is bring in a huge unmanned ladder, and that is very high adjacent to the building, and that is directing water right into the middle of the building itself. Critically, no firefighters at risk. This is an unmanned ladder, and hopefully that will be able to put out pretty soon that big fire that took hold again right in the middle of the building. I've been speaking to one eyewitness this morning who told me how the fire, in her view, started quite low in the building and then spread very quickly upwards. Now, of course, that may mean that people were trapped towards the top of the building. Clearly, there doesn't appear to be anybody alive left in the building now. But the fear, of course, for the authorities is that they put the fire out and they work their way up higher into the building, that they may come across more bodies. Just to repeat that statement from the Metropolitan Police that you alluded to, we can confirm 6 fatalities at this time following the fire in North Kensington in the early hours of this morning, Wednesday, the 14th of June. These are very early stages, and we do expect that figure to rise. So as the Fire Commissioner, Danny Cotton, told us earlier, there have been fatalities, there have been a significant number of injuries, and that number will sadly probably rise. But the biggest concern now, amid all of this recrimination, amid all these allegations about warnings given to the authorities, the biggest concern now is to put out the fire and make sure the building itself is safe and is not going to collapse. The Commissioner told me when I asked her, she said they weren't concerned that the building was going to collapse, but that was about an hour ago. The concern, of course, is as the fire drags on, and if it isn't put out, then the integrity of the building itself could become a serious issue.
So that is clearly a key element that we have to keep an eye on, the issue of the structural safety or otherwise of that building. That also puts me in mind, Wira, of the risks that inevitably the emergency services take at a time like this, and we have been hearing from people who mercifully did manage to escape that in the middle of the night, and how they were running down the stairwell, of course getting out of the building, and firefighters were coming up to try to help people, and it's those sort of stories remind us of the risks that emergency personnel take as well here.
Yeah, I mean, that was quite clear. There have been relief fire crews, and some of the crews are working all night. We've seen crews come in from Orpington in Kent. The Commissioner alluded to the bravery of the firefighters, but of course they can't take risks, and that's why this huge unmanned crane behind me is now so critical. Because they were concerned about the integrity of the building itself, they couldn't put firefighters in danger this morning to try and put out those blazes. But now they've been able to bring in this high-tech unmanned equipment, and hopefully, without putting firefighters at risk, they'll be able to put out the fire.
Wira, thank you very much for that update. Wira Davis, our correspondent, who's on the other side of the tower block from where I'm speaking to you here in West London. Let's also go to our health correspondent, Jane Draper, because she's at St Mary's Hospital. What are you gleaning there about people who have been taken to hospital, Jane?
Well, we're still waiting to get the exact numbers of those who are being treated here. We hope to have some indication of that in the next hour or so. I've been here for quite a few hours this morning, and it's certainly not business as usual at this hospital. Just behind me, they've got security guards at the door and signs up declaring a major incident, and they are turning patients away who don't necessarily need to be here. Unless they really need to be here, they're being asked to go elsewhere today. And St Mary's here is just a stone's throw really from Grenfell Tower. It's one of 4 London hospitals which deals with major trauma cases, major injuries, so it was a very obvious place to take casualties in the middle of the night, and a lot of staff working through the night. I saw some people who were really shattered at the end of their shifts. It was a very bad day, and some really distraught scenes here this morning. One woman I talked to had come to search for her friend, a mother of 3 living on the 20th floor, and was very obviously distraught that her friend at that point was as yet unaccounted for. So some very difficult times here.
Jane, thank you very much. Jane Draper with the update there from St Mary's Hospital, not that far from here. Excuse me, here at the Grenfell Tower in West London. Let's talk to one young lady who I've been chatting to this morning, who is born and bred in this part of West London. Tasha, thanks so much for speaking to us again on a very difficult day for people like you who've lived here a long time.
Yeah.
I will ask you, first of all, an awful lot of people like you are wearing those masks. I've walked past a lot of people with those today. I know they're being handed out. I'm curious, what are your concerns, and why are people wearing them?
The smell, the fumes. I have the worst headache I've ever had. It's just the plastic burning, isn't it? It's the plastic. Yeah, it's not a good feeling. It's not a good environment to be in.
And when did you realise that something was happening not that far from where you live?
This morning, when I had messages from friends and family asking if I was okay, turned on the news and just ran straight down here, grabbed clothes and water and just came straight down.
And you've been handing out clothes and water to people who need it?
Yeah, and I've been... CNN have put my email address up on their Facebook page, so I've been flooded with people offering rooms and sofas. So it's really fantastic how we've all come together, but it's at a cost.
Of course. What have people been saying this morning? What are people reflecting on?
I think people are in shock. People are angry. The refurbishment that you mentioned, I think, has played a big part in the fire, and it spread so rapidly. The plastic cladding was like paper. It just burnt straight through. And so people are angry and people want answers. There were many warnings. People raised their concerns and nothing was done about it. And it's our home community, and it might not matter so much to Westminster, but it matters to us. We're angry and sad.
And we hope as many people as possible have got out. Regrettably, we know not everybody has, but for those who have got out, clearly, just looking at that, they've lost everything. They've lost their home, they've lost their possessions.
Yeah.
What sort of help is going to be on offer for those people? As someone who's grown up here, do you think people will be doing what you're doing, opening up their doors, saying come and stay?
Absolutely. People have been amazing this morning. Really, I'm not the only one making lists of accommodation. People willing to give up their rooms and houses. Just community centres opening their doors, Westway Sports Centre closing to the public, but opening it up to people who've lost their homes and friends and everything. Yeah.
And I know you said to me you phoned your boss and you said you're not going into work today.
I can't do it.
That's just you're too upset.
I want to stay here, and I don't know how much more I can help or what I can do to help, but I feel this is where I need to be right now. Yeah.
And I hope everybody that you know and love is safe this morning.
I believe so. It's not the time to check just yet. I think the time is just to use our positivity to help those in need. I'll check in due course. Yeah.
Well, Tasha, we hope as well that everyone is safe in your world. Thank you very much indeed. We wish you all the best to all your friends and family. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. And Tasha's story, as she alluded to, is not unusual. I have been really struck by the number of groups of people I've walked past since we've been here in the last couple of hours who are trying to do their bit, trying to help. Lots and lots of people grabbing bottles of water, food, taking it around to people, offering it to the emergency services. I saw the police at one of the cordons around the corner. A lady turned up with an entire shopping trolley full of food and drink and just said, "This is for all of you. This is for anyone who's working so hard today. Please have everything in this trolley." Let's talk to our correspondent Helena Lee. Helena, explain where you are this morning and what you're hearing from the medics there.
Well, Jane, we are outside Chelsea and Westminster Hospital in West London. We're probably around 3 miles or so away from where you are, the location of that tower fire. Now, this is one of 5 hospitals which are treating over 50 patients. So in the early hours of this morning, some of those patients were brought here to Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. It's a busy London hospital. It's got an A&E department here, but crucially here, they've got a specialist burns unit. And so I'm told some of those who were more severely injured, who were suffering from pretty severe burns, would have been brought here to Chelsea and Westminster Hospital, and they've got dedicated burns specialists here to treat them. We don't know yet how many patients have been treated here at this hospital. However, the hospital has said that it will provide us with some more detail a bit later on today. But we know overall from London Ambulance that over 50 patients were taken to hospital. I suspect that number will probably rise as the hours go on throughout the day. There were advanced trauma teams sent to the scene as well as air ambulance in the early hours of this morning, and it will be very difficult in terms of treating those patients. But don't forget, these hospitals are well rehearsed, well used to dealing with major incidents, but still a very difficult situation in terms of the number of patients they've had to take in.
All right, Helena, thank you for that update, and I know you'll keep us up to date if the medics there give you any further information. Helena Lee at Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. If you are just joining us, worth reminding you, regrettably, that the Metropolitan Police this morning is saying that 6 people are known to have died here in this tower fire in the early hours of this morning. 6 people is what the Met is telling us at the moment, and they're saying, regrettably, they expect that number to rise. There are still emergency services, fire crews at the scene, at the base of the building on the other side of the tower. And of course, at the moment, the emphasis has to be as well on making the building structurally sound. It is 24 stories high, and we're in the Latimer Road area of West London, if you don't know the capital, just into the west of London. Let's talk to Graham Fieldhouse, who is has a specialism in fire safety, particularly, I think, Graham, in relation to social housing. Thank you so much for joining us. The one thing that we are hearing time and again here is just how quickly the fire spread. So I'm interested in what you make of that specific detail.
Hello? Hello?
Graham Fieldhouse, I'm hoping you can hear me. Good morning. You're through to BBC News. I was asking you what your thoughts were given how quickly the fire spread.
This is Niall Rowan here from the ASFP.
I'm so sorry, we've clearly got a problem. I hope we can talk to Graham shortly, because obviously with his specialism, he is absolutely someone we want to speak to as soon as we possibly can. Just worth pointing out with you, it's a grim scene to keep looking at, I know, but we have just seen in the last few minutes to the right of the tower block here, you'll see another fire, I would say perhaps midway up this block, 24-storey block. Very nearly midway over to the right-hand side, you will see a flat on fire there, and then over to the left-hand side of the tower block, the water jets, and I think that is the crane that our correspondent Weira Davis was talking about to me a few minutes ago, and that crane is being sent up again with the water jets. But the fact that this is still burning now, what are we, 11:30 in the morning, and this fire began at 5 to 1 this morning. That many hours later, there is still a fire in one side of the building there. An absolutely desperate scene, and it's a sight that nobody expects to see in this country in 2017. That is really what you take away from that.